I'm John Forde. Coming up next on the St. Paul Forum, I'll be speaking with Sam Buffington and Irna Landrum about Twin Cities Community Radio. That's next on the St. Paul Forum. Welcome to the St. Paul Forum. I'm John Forde. With me today are Irna Landrum and Sam Buffington of Twin Cities Community Radio. Welcome, you guys.
Thanks.
Okay, Twin Cities Community Radio is a collaboration between Frogtown and Phillips, is that right?
Yeah.
And is that because they both start with the same letter? No. No, okay. What is Twin Cities Community Radio?
So Twin Cities Community Radio, as you've already said, is this partnership between Phillips neighborhood in Minneapolis and then the Frogtown and Summit U neighborhoods in St. Paul. And we're a bunch of organizations that are looking to get a low-power FM radio station in our community so that we can have access to telling our own stories.
Okay.
For anybody?
Yeah, so it's in St. Paul. It's Summit University Planning Council, where Irna works.
Right.
Frogtown Neighborhood Association, where I work, so we're the two district councils from the area, as well as Center for Young Arts and Talent. Has been a kind of constant partner with us there. A lot of Frogtown residents, business owners have been engaged, as well as folks over in Summit University.
Right.
And then kind of Main Street Project has been a partner that's kind of bringing the two cities together. So it's been a lot of place-based organizations in the Phillips neighborhood, place-based organizations in St. Paul,
Sure.
and then with Main Street Project kind of making sure that we're all talking together and planning together. So.
Sure.
Okay. I should be asking all kinds of open-ended, analytic, opinion questions, but instead I'm going to ask a stupid question like, when did low-power radio start? There was a ruling like 8 years ago or something like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's been low-power FM stations for a while, but the opportunity that exists right now came about because of the Local Community Radio Act, which was signed in 2011.
Okay.
And so what this did is release about 1,000 radio frequencies or stations throughout the country. And people are expecting this will be the last time that this really happens. And so it's kind of filling in those little spaces between the dial, the whatever the number is, 0.1, 0.3. So it's kind of filling those little pieces in. As technology has gotten better, it's made it easier to kind of access.
Have clean signals.
Have clean signals. Yeah, exactly. And so these are this is our kind of last opportunity to pick these up. And there's a Prometheus Radio project out of Philly is helping kind of coordinate this nationally to make sure that a lot of the kind of local communities get a real chance to get their voices heard through radio.
And so, who is Prometheus Radio?
They're a media justice organization out of Philadelphia who's been working on radio stuff for years, and they do it kind of nationally. They have some local stuff in Philadelphia, but then they helped the Immokalee workers in Immokalee, Florida, get a community radio station, and so they've just been working on this kind of thing for a long time. So they have a lot of resources.
They're
and
a tremendous resource, but I'm just kind of astounded by the audacity and the ambition of filling. Is it going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Yep.
How do you do that? That takes a lot of people and infrastructure.
It does.
It does, yeah. So how do we do that?
Yeah. Well, where are we in the timeline?
Okay, so I mean, timeline-wise, the FCC just recently released the applications. So we've been kind of waiting on that since 2011. There's been some delays in that coming out. That just recently came out. So we have until about mid-October to get the applications in. So the kind of what we're working on right now is making sure that you have to be a nonprofit to apply. So we're trying to get nonprofits in both of these two neighborhoods geared up and ready to fill out the application. And then also making sure that we're thinking about, well, how, depending on which organization actually gets a radio station, if one does, so hopefully somebody will, and if we do, like, how do we make sure that we're still all working together to get our stories out and to get those neighborhood stories out? But then, assuming that we get we'll get our applications in mid-October, and then it'll probably be about 6 months or more to hear back from the FCC. There may be other processes that happen after that. We've heard that sometimes they combine organizations, sometimes they give people a chance to combine themselves. So we don't really know exactly what that will look like, but there'll probably be some sort of process of kind of alignment of all the different people who've applied. And then there'll be kind of 18 months to 3 years to get an actual radio station up and running, physically built. So I mean, we're looking at multiple-year process.
Yep.
But I don't know if you want to talk on about a little bit about some of the work we're doing to create content.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, in the meantime, we are already working. I know that Main Street Project, as one of the main partners in both cities, has worked to do trainings to help people learn how to podcast and edit those. And so we already have some of the podcasts up on the website, some content that's been created by residents and by residents.
Yeah.
And so some of those are up like on the Twin Cities Community Radio website already. So I think that when we do hear back from the FCC, we won't be starting from scratch. There's just a ton of work being done already.
I'm talking about just one transmitter or one for each?
One for each.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because low power goes a couple miles, 3 miles?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, we're thinking from our tower, it would be about a 3 to 5 mile radius.
Okay.
Yeah. And so for St. Paul in particular, I mean, there's a couple locations that we're looking at, both for sites to have the actual station and then sites for the tower where it broadcasts from. And so we're hoping that the Frogtown Park and Farm site, which is kind of Victoria and Minnehaha, which has been a big project that we're excited to see happening. But that's a top of a pretty large hill. It's where the Wilder Foundation used to have their campus. And so there's going to be park space going down the sides, and then this big flat area that's going to be a farm. But we're also hoping to put the tower up there, which would hopefully increase our range a little bit. And then we're also working on a project, both of our organizations, Center for Hmong Arts and Talent, kind of a separate project about looking to acquire, fix up, and get the old Victoria Theater on University Avenue, kind of University of Victoria area. We'd like to find a way to get that back into community hands, and so there's Center for Hmong Arts and Talent, and a couple other like local community theater groups are working with our organizations to kind of figure out how we get that, and we think that would be a really wonderful spot to have the actual station itself, and so broadcast some of the things that are produced there.
And how much infrastructure will it take? I mean, it's going to take a lot of money. You need at least one recording studio and an engineering booth and a library of some sort and place to greet. You'll do live interviews, that sort of thing as well? Okay.
Yep.
So you have a lot of different genres of programming then.
It's true.
And somebody's got to make those decisions. It almost sounds like it's going to be a squabble. It's like, we want more music, we want more neighborhood, or we want even more local. I want my block, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I think infrastructure is a piece that we've been working really hard on figuring out. I mean, I think there's no lack of interest. There's plenty of people who want all different kinds of shows, from, like you said, like music shows to kind of news-related shows, very localized, some more culturally specific, some really like neighborhood specific, talk shows, cooking shows. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that ideas that have been proposed. So I don't think there's any like kind of lack of interest, but it is kind of figuring out how that works. And so that's been something that we've been continuing to work hard to figure out. And there's a bunch of different models. Prometheus has a lot of kind of assistance and information available on how to do that. So
why don't we give the website right now so that people can take a look at it?
Sure.
Okay.
That is www.tcommunityradio.org.
Okay. And we will put it up in graphic form as well. Okay. So roughly how much money do we have to raise to get this off the ground? Do we know?
Yeah.
Yes.
The kind of the low end of it is $10,000 to get the most basic studio and kind of all the equipment up and running. I think we're thinking quite a bit more than that. So I mean, I think kind of upfront, we're hoping to raise $100,000 to kind of get things started, and then there'll be kind of the annual cost, and that'll vary also depending on things. So I mean, but the first kind of fundraising hurdle is raising money for the engineering studies that are part of the application process.
Okay.
And so that's the first piece that we're looking for. We're hoping to raise about $5,000 for that. And so, I don't know, Irna, if you want to plug our, our fundraising
Plug our
event.
fundraiser. We actually have a fundraiser coming up on Sunday, August 4th from 7 p.m. to 11 at Honey in Minneapolis. We'll have a lot of great local acts. Should I say who?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Malamanya, Mally with Last Word, Greg Grease, Medium Zach of Big Quarters, Holographic Sands, and IBE are all the acts that we're going to have. We're just going to get together, and there's going to be a silent auction, a raffle, and it's just an awesome dance party.
Good.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to be a great show.
Yeah.
And this will cover engineering studies, which largely to do with the transmission? Is that,
Yeah,
that would
I
mean?
mean to make sure that we're asking for the frequencies that are available, that that the space is there, and what areas it'll cover, and those kind of things.
Okay.
So,
And so when you get your FCC approval,
Yes.
I mean, there's another party, I assume. But then the next day you get up and you have to figure out how do you put one foot in front of the other, and what will that look like? Because I believe you're going to get the approval. So
yeah.
We do too.
Good.
What that's going to look like, I think we're just sort of still in process about that.
Conjecture.
Yeah.
Wildly.
Conjecture.
Wildly. Yeah.
I mean, probably a lot of meetings. I mean, we have a lot of groups. We have a lot of residents. I mean, both our organizations, we spend a lot of time figuring out community process to build things for the community. And so, I mean, I think it's something that we have a lot of experience doing, but it's going to be, sitting down and starting to really figure out, like, how do we divide up time? Like I said, Prometheus has a lot of different models out there. So some radio stations have gone the route of, this organization takes Mondays, this organization takes Tuesdays.
Right.
So that
For
might
programming,
be
you mean?
for programming.
Right.
So there might be, for example, there might be Frogtown Radio Mondays, Summit University Tuesdays, Hmong Language Radio on Wednesdays. So that's one model. KFAI is another model where they have kind of all these different kinds of programming, and that's kind of mixed up. They have their different. I mean, I'm sure they have a structure for how they choose what goes where, but it's not that different. I mean, there's music shows followed by news shows and all those kind of things. So I think there's a lot of different models, and it really is going to be figuring that out. And I think the biggest, most important piece for us is that this is coming out of the community. That it's residents and business owners in these neighborhoods that are deciding what this radio needs to look like for them.
Right.
Okay. In case you're just joining us, this is the St. Paul Forum, and I'm John Forde. We're talking about Twin Cities Community Radio and the prospect of getting low-power broadcasting here in the next 18 months. Is that realistic?
That would be the short end, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. How much of low-power, I mean, it seems to me the strength of low-power broadcasting is the ability of the community to get information out that's fairly topical, that's relevant. Yes. How much of it is going to be almost like news-based or community issues-based? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine a lot of it. Like one of the reasons that a lot of the organizations that are involved were excited about this is that we have communities who very often the stories that are written about us are written from outside of the community, from people who don't live there or spend a lot of time there. And so there's just definitely a strong feeling that the news about our community needs to be shaped by our community, and we need to be telling our stories. And so I do think that even though we're in conjecture, that it's a really safe bet that there will be a lot of news and information focus going out.
Now you mentioned business owners being one of the drivers of this. They can support the station in terms of underwriting shows, and they can donate to the station. Is that correct? Directly?
Yeah. There won't be advertising though. I mean, it won't. It's public radio. So
Right.
yeah.
And how much will the new Green Line play into this? It's going to totally favor Frogtown over Phillips. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that well, it's just an argument why Phillips should get a rail. That's just the same kind of thing. Tell me more about the people who are involved. How many are currently? I mean, you have meetings and a number of driving organizations. Are there more than a dozen people who are really in the prime pushing position?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we have about around a dozen people. depending on, a bunch of people had babies.
Okay,
So
yeah.
partly through this process,
Yeah.
we have some people dropping in
It
and
can
out.
only mess you up.
Yeah, including myself.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but generally we have about a dozen people who show up kind of regularly to these meetings. But then we've been working through kind of youth groups and just with residents to do these trainings. So, I mean, we've worked with, I'd say, well over 100 people in one form or another. So.
Okay. And once the station is up and running, what kind of sustaining model is there? I mean, is it going to be sponsorship? And how big is the vision at what you could call not an end state, but a plateau state?
How big is the vision?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen KFAI. I mean, they have, physical offices and 2 or 3 full-time staff. Is that something that you're aspiring to, something on that scale? Or is that beyond the bounds of literally the geography?
I think that's a good question. Again, I
It
think
is. I was going to say, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think, Irna, feel free to jump in on this too, but I mean, I think that one of the conversations that's been happening a lot, especially as we've kind of brought this out to residents, so and kind of taking it past the point of, we're trying to figure out the licensing stuff, but like that bigger vision of what could this be. I think one of the things that people really keep talking about is the idea of a community space, that this is also like a physical entity as well as the radio that's going out to people. And so thinking of it as a place where we can do on-the-job training with young people, where the community comes together for activities, for events, things like that. So I do think that that kind of physical space that is a public physical space is definitely there. As far as staff, I mean, I think that there's different models, and I don't think we've decided on which one. I know certain kinds of money require you to have paid staff, and I've heard that there's good things and bad things about that, and so I think that's definitely something that we were looking at. But I think definitely that idea of like physical space is very much key to the conversations that have been happening.
And I know that Frogtown is targeting the old Victoria Theater. Arna, is there something in Phillips? You have your eye on a building, or?
Oh, well, so I'm in Summit U, just across University from Frogtown, and so our organizations together are both very interested in the Victoria Theater. But in terms of space in Phillips, I mean, we've started some conversations, but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, you got the St. Paul contingent today.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think as far as the tower, I think that's still kind of up in the air in Minneapolis, but Waite House has been a real key partner in Minneapolis, in the Phillips neighborhood, and so I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was where it ended up. So.
Okay. How about getting youth involved? Is this largely driven at the adult level, or are teens part of the I don't know, the energy, I guess I would say?
I mean, I think right now, in terms of what we talked about, some content being created right now, I think most of that content has been created with youth groups. I know that Chat has been involved in creating some content, as well as some other youth in Frogtown. So this is not in any way driven at the adult level. I mean, when we're talking about community voice, like one of those underrepresented community voices is always youth, and so we're really excited about and proud about how much we've involved youth in the process so far.
And how about the oldest demographics? For one thing, they're still thinking radio. They're not thinking website.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that sense of community can be very powerful to them as well. I know there've been a number of successful programs aimed in that bracket. You got people like that, or are you just waiting for them to come through the doors?
No, so we haven't actually created content specifically with some of our seniors, but we do have very active in both of our neighborhoods. So both the kind of the Rondo area and in the Frogtown area have very active senior groups who are always out there telling stories and kind of getting things done. So I think that there's going to be a big push for that, and I think.
And I keep coming back to the personnel involved, because I know that personalities are always so interesting. But one of the big features of this conversation is, how can people get involved? I mean, you're still recruiting people. The more energy you've got behind you, how can people get involved?
Yeah.
Well,
Go for it.
you?
No, you.
Well, there's a number of ways to get involved. First, we would love for people to come out to the fundraiser again on Sunday, August 4th from 7 to 11 at Honey. People can get involved by contacting our organizations, or we actually do have an email address for the project. It's twincitiescommunityradio@gmail.com. Lots of people check it for lots of things, but folks who would be interested in creating some content, that's a way to get involved, to just help spread the word. Like right now, there's very much a core group of people who know a lot about this, but just to continue to get the word out and spread the excitement is a way to get involved. Do you have any other ways to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say that, if you send us an email or check our website, we are having these podcasting trainings, and we're kind of visioning other types of programming training. So like not just how would you create a news show, but how would you create a music show, those kinds of things. So we're going to be having a series of these trainings, and we'll always be posting those on our website. They'll be free and open to anybody in the community. There's usually limited space, so you need to sign up, and that information will all be on our website. And if you connect to us via email, then we'll make sure to get back to you when those things open up and when those opportunities open up. But we're always looking for people, anybody who has a passion for radio, anybody, especially if you live in Frogtown, Summit U, Phillips area, or any of the kind of immediate surrounding areas, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to work with you. And the more people we get involved with this, the more successful it's going to be.
Absolutely.
I recognize that Prometheus is bringing a lot of the expertise, but the people here also have the opportunity to look at successful models in other cities. Have you looked at some of the community radio in other places, and what's working there?
Yeah. I mean, so we're lucky here that we actually have a lot of really good models here in the Twin Cities as well. I mean, KFAI is a great example. We have some very successful college radio stations as well. So we're looking to them, and they've actually been very, very helpful. KMOJ, and that's another one, really locally, where we're looking for a lot of guidance and help, and so they've been very helpful. I mean, kind of through Prometheus, we've been connected to various radio stations in different places. I think one that's just really inspiring is the Immokalee station in Immokalee, Florida, with the workers down there. I mean, that's a place. It's different in the sense that it's a rural area, but it's one of these ones where that was a group of people who really didn't have their voice in the media, and now have a radio station that's running 24 hours a day. They're playing music, they're getting news out there, and they're being held up as a model for the rest of the world. So, I mean, I think.
Yeah, I'm always interested in the political dimension. I mean, there's got to be a political dimension of this, including people who don't want it to happen. Is there pushback from any of those stations you're going to be between? Are you just eating part of our audience, or other? I mean, the rich powers that be don't like to empower the grassroots because you make noise and then you want things, and it's like, so how do you manage that to change the world to be a better place and yet not stick them in the eye at the very start? Yeah.
I'm sure that will happen. I don't know that we've experienced so much of the pushback just yet. So I'm sure that it will happen in terms of how we deal with it. I don't think that we're looking to, sort of compete with anyone or spit in anyone's eye. We're just sort of saying that this is a gap. And I think that people understand gaps, that there's, no one person or entity or organization can cover everything. And so I hope folks see us as a welcome addition to the landscape.
And now the organizations that are your employers are also involved in like urban transportation, like maybe urban agriculture, a lot of those different kind of things that the radio station can just improve the communication of. Right. And so is that why this is part of your job assignment, to actually make those organizations flourish more fully?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to Frogtown. I mean, we're the only neighborhood in St. Paul that doesn't have a free local newspaper, like neighborhood newspaper. We don't get covered very much in mainstream media, and when we do, it's often, it's the blood and guts that people want to cover. Like everyone will show up if there's a shooting, everyone will show up if there's a big fight about something, but no one wants to cover the little successes that happen, the dozens of community gardens that we have running, or the seniors that get together to play horseshoes every Wednesday. Like those kinds of things don't get covered. And so for us, this is a huge benefit. And I think, really for all of these organizations to reach out to people in Frogtown, and it's something that can cover a lot of area. And we have, dozens of languages that are spoken, and this will be an opportunity for people to produce content specifically to those languages. A lot of folks who aren't reading, and, this is great opportunity. I mean, radio is very, very democratic in that sense, especially if it's done right. And so, I mean, I think this is a huge opportunity for us.
Right. Well, and for Summit U, I think you said something earlier about people wanting it to be even hyper local, like what's happening on my block. And so we do have a free community newspaper, but it doesn't cover our entire area. It doesn't go out to all of our residents. We used to, as an organization, put out a quarterly newsletter, but due to these rough economic times, have had to abandon that. And it is something that people have expressed a sense of loss over. They really like getting sort of that region-wide news, but like knowing just what was happening within their 1 mile radius area is something that's really important to people.
And how many people would be within the signal? We're talking, I mean, I would think in a dense urban area, is it 50,000? Is it 20,000? Okay.
I mean, yeah, because
Yeah.
Frogtown itself is 16,000+.
We're 17.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, and it would definitely go bigger than that.
The entire perimeter, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Phillips is an even more densely populated neighborhood. So
Okay.
yeah,
We've only got about 90 seconds left, so this is your best opportunity to tell people again how they can get involved.
yeah.
Go.
All right. So again, I mean, I think we really want people to check out the website because we have the content that we've created is up there. So that's www.tccommunityradio.org. We'll have trainings up there. We have the content that we've created. We'll have links to other resources, and it's a great place to check in and see what we're up to.
And Irna, how else can people get involved?
Oh, well, people can always contact us at any time with the Twin Cities Community Radio email address, which is twincitiescommunityradio@gmail.com for updates, questions, concerns, curiosities, anything.
I've been speaking with Sam Buffington and Irna Landrum about Twin Cities Community Radio. That's all we've got time for on the St. Paul Forum. Come join us again next week.